Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to watch our next video. Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to watch our next video.
Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Black Jewelries and join us for more powerful.
Houston smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet when Marcus Whitfield pushed through the revolving glass doors of the Windward Grand Hotel at 10:47 in the morning. He wore a gray hoodie soft from 100 washes, jeans with a small tear above the left knee, and boots that had clearly walked more miles than they had any business walking. He carried nothing but a canvas duffel bag and the kind of quiet that made people either trust him instantly or distrust him completely. The marble floor beneath him gleamed so hard it looked wet. A crystal chandelier scattered morning light across the lobby like scattered coins. Nobody looked up. That was exactly how Marcus liked it. He crossed toward the reception desk, where a woman named Denise Ashford stood arranging a stack of key cards with the precision of someone who took her job and her opinions very seriously. Denise had worked the front desk at the Windward Grand for 6 years, long enough to believe she could read a guest bank account from 15 feet away. She watched Marcus approach, took in the hoodie, the boots, the duffel bag slung over one shoulder, and made a decision about him before he ever opened his mouth. Her lips pressed into a thin, practiced line. Her eyes flicked toward the security desk near the elevators. Something in her posture shifted, the way a dog's hackles rise before it barks. Can I help you? She said, though the words came out more like a challenge than an offer. I have a reservation, Marcus said. His voice stayed low, and even the voice of a man who had spent years learning that calm was a form of armor. Under Whitfield, Denise didn't type anything into her computer. She didn't need to. This is a 5-star property, sir. Rooms start at $480 a night. She said it slowly, like she was explaining fractions to a child. Are you certain you have the right hotel? A businessman near the concierge desk lowered his newspaper an inch, curious. A young mother adjusted her toddler on her hip. Nobody said anything yet, because nothing had happened yet that demanded a response. But the air in the lobby had already changed texture, the way it does right before a storm breaks. I'm certain, Marcus said. He reached slowly into his hoodie pocket for his phone. I can show you the confirmation. That was when Denise reached under the counter and grabbed a bottle of hand sanitizer, the kind with the pump top, sitting there for guests to use before they touched the elevator buttons. Without a word of warning, she raised it and sprayed it directly into Marcus's face. He flinched, one hand coming up too late to block it. The alcohol burned into his eyes immediately, and for 3 full seconds he stood there blinking, breathing through his mouth, saying nothing at all. We don't want your kind bringing whatever you're carrying into our lobby, Denise announced Latsvanatu for the growing cluster of onlookers to hear. She said it, the way people say things they've rehearsed in their heads 100 times before ever saying them out loud. A coffee cup trembled in the businessman's hand. The young mother pulled her toddler closer. Somewhere near the elevator bank, a phone rose into the air, its camera light blinking red. Have you ever watched someone get punished for a crime that only existed in another person's imagination? Keep that feeling in your chest, because it's about to get worse before anything gets better. Security Chief Grant Holloway arrived at a fast walk, one hand already resting on his radio. Grant was 44 years old, built like a man who used to play college football and never quite let that identity go. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. Denise's version of events had already become the only version that mattered. Sir, I'm going to need you to step outside, Grant said. I haven't done anything, Marcus said, still wiping at his stinging eyes with the sleeve of his hoodie. I have a reservation. I was reaching for my phone to show the confirmation. Sure you were, Denise said, and her laugh had an edge to it, sharp as a paper cut. That's what they always say. The assistant manager, a woman named Priscilla Voss, appeared at Denise's shoulder as if she'd been waiting in the wings for her cue. Sus had a smile that never once reached her eyes. Is there a problem here? This man is trying to talk his way into the rooms he clearly can't afford, Denise said, gesturing at Marcus like he was a stain on the carpet. Another one of these confidence men. They target hotels like ours specifically. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He didn't reach for it this time. He'd learned that lesson 3 seconds too late already. Ma'am, he said quietly to Priscilla, could we resolve this at the desk privately? Privately, so you can accuse us of something we didn't do? Priscilla's laugh matched Denise's in pitch and cruelty. I don't think so. This is exactly how these situations start. They provoke a scene, then act like the victim when good people protect their business. By now, 19 people had gathered in a loose semicircle, some recording, some whispering, a few looking uncomfortable but silent, the way crowds often are when the wrong thing is happening in front of them and nobody wants to be the first to say so. A young woman near the concierge stand had started an Instagram live stream, her voice a nervous whisper into her phone's microphone. You guys, this is insane, she said. This man hasn't raised his voice once and they're treating him like he robbed a bank. Her viewer count crept upward, 14, 31, 58. Grant's radio crackled. Holloway status. He keyed the mic without breaking eye contact with Marcus. Possible trespassing situation, main lobby. Subject refusing to leave. I haven't refused anything, Marcus said. I've asked one question. Where's the manager? Denise stepped closer, pointing a manicured finger toward the revolving doors, like she was banishing something unclean. Security, please. Remove this vagrant before he causes real trouble. The word landed in the lobby like a dropped glass. A few people flinched at it. The businessman with the cough finally set his cup down. Excuse me, he said, standing. This seems excessive. The man just wants to check in. Sir, with respect, Priscilla said, turning on him with the smooth condescension of someone who'd delivered this speech before. You don't understand the security challenges properties like ours face every single day. Marcus's watch caught the light as he lifted his wrist to check the time. It was a plain steel and leather piece, nothing flashy, but something about the way he wore it like a man checking a schedule rather than showing off an accessory seemed to bother Denise more than anything else had. You have somewhere important to be? She said mockingly. A board meeting, maybe? Marcus said nothing. His silence had a weight to it that made the sarcasm in the room curdle just slightly. The Instagram livestream hit 200 viewers. A local blog account called Vayu City Watch joined the broadcast, and within 90 seconds, the number doubled again. Grant's radio crackled a second time. Dispatch requesting an HPD unit to the Windward Grand, main lobby. Trespassing complaint. That announcement changed the temperature of the room instantly. This was no longer a misunderstanding that would dissolve on its own. This was heading somewhere with consequences attached to it, the kind that don't undo themselves with an apology. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, the way a man does when he's making a decision he's been putting off. When he opened them, something in his face had shifted, though nobody in that lobby yet understood what. Before your officers arrive, he said, his voice as level as it had been from the very first word, I'd like to make one phone call. Denise threw with both hands up. Of course you would. Let me guess. Your lawyer, your civil rights attorney, your social media manager? Actually, Marcus said, already scrolling to a contact, I'm calling the owner. Denise's laugh this time had a crack running through it that hadn't been there a minute earlier. The owner of what exactly? Your little scheme? The phone rang once. Twice. On the third ring, a voice answered, and the entire trajectory of the morning bent sideways. Robert, it's Marcus. I'm standing in the main lobby of the flagship property, and I need you down here in the next 60 seconds. Silence doesn't have a sound, but that lobby found one anyway. It was the sound of 19 people realizing, all at once, that they might have gotten something catastrophically wrong. The voice on the other end, General Manager Robert Hale, could be heard faintly through the speaker, tight with confusion. Sir, is everything all right? I wasn't expecting. Everything is not all right, Marcus said. Am. Your front desk manager sprayed sanitizer in my face and called me a vagrant. Am. Your security chief is preparing to have me arrested. Your assistant manager has accused me, in front of 200 witnesses, of running a confidence scheme. Am. Denise's face lost its color in real time, like watching ink drain out of paper. Am. Grant's hand slid off his radio and just hung there, forgotten. Am. Priscilla took an unconscious step back, bumping into the reception counter. Am. Sir, Robert's voice said, cracking slightly, could you repeat that? Am. Someone sprayed. Marcus reached into his hoodie's inner pocket, and Denise flinched hard, bracing for a weapon that never came. Am. What emerged instead was a simple ivory white business card with raised gold lettering, and he held it up toward the nearest camera without a word. Am. Marcus Swift, Executive Officer, Windward Luxury Hotels and Resorts. Am. The young woman running the live stream nearly dropped her phone. Am. Oh, God, she whispered, forgetting entirely that she was still broadcasting. Am. Oh, my actual God, you guys. The viewer count crossed 3,000 and kept climbing. Am. If you've ever wondered what accountability actually looks like when it walks through the front door in a hoodie and worn boots, you're about to see it in full. Am. Denise stared at the card like it had been written in a language she didn't speak. Am. This is fake, she said, though her whole voice had lost every ounce of its earlier certainty. Am. Anybody can print a business card. This is part of whatever scam you're. Am. The watch isn't fake, Marcus said quietly. The phone call to your general manager wasn't fake. Am. And in about 40 seconds, he's going to walk through that elevator bank, and you're going to see for yourself. Am. 41 seconds later, the elevator chimed. Robert Hale came out at a dead run, his tie crooked, his usually combed hair disheveled from raking his fingers through it in a panic. Am. Behind him hurried a woman in a sharp navy blazer, corporate HR director Patricia Reyes, struggling to keep pace on low heels across the marble. Am. Robert's eyes found Marcus, and every trace of composure drained from his face at once. Am. Mr. Whitfield, he said, approaching like a man walking toward a verdict he already knew. Am. Sir, I am so deeply sorry. I had no idea you were on the property. Am. That's precisely the problem, Marcus said, his tone still calm, still quiet, but carrying a different kind of weight now. Am. Your staff behaved this way because they assumed no one important was watching. Am. The question I need answered is why that assumption changes anything at all. Am. Patricia stepped forward, tablet already in hand. Mr. Whitfield, I'm Patricia Reyes, corporate HR. Am. We need to discuss immediate remediation. We will, Marcus said. Am. But first, I think the people in this lobby deserve to hear something, Mrs. Am. Ashford has apparently never had to say out loud. Am. He turned to Denise. How many discrimination complaints has this property logged in the last 14 months? Am. Robert's throat bobbed. I'd have to check that. 22 formal complaints, Marcus said. Am. 36 informal ones through guest services, every one of them dismissed, downplayed, or quietly buried. Am. He let that number sit in the air. I'll give you 3 right now from guests who never got an apology. Am. He gestured toward the crowd, and to everyone's surprise, 3 people stepped forward, not planted, not rehearsed, simply guests and staff who had been waiting years for someone to finally ask. Am. A woman named Renata Doyle spoke first, her voice shaking. Am. I was told there was no reservation under my name last spring, even though I had the confirmation email open on my phone. Am. They gave the room to the white couple standing behind me instead. Am. A man named Julian Marsh spoke next, arms crossed tight over his chest. Am. Security followed me around this lobby for 20 minutes straight, like I was going to steal a chandelier. Am. I complained. Nothing happened. A young valet named Corey Timmons, still in uniform, spoke last, his voice barely above a whisper. Am. I'm an employee here. I've heard Denise use that same line on other guests before. Am. I reported it twice. I was told to let it go because she brings in good reviews. Am. The lobby had gone completely, utterly silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the faint click of 100 camera shutters. Am. 22 complaints, Marcus said again, quieter now. 36 informal ones. Am. And it took a viral phone call for anyone to finally listen. Am. Denise's composure finally cracked entirely. I didn't know who you were, she said, her voice small. Am. You weren't supposed to know who I am, Marcus answered. Am. You were supposed to treat every single person who walks through those doors with basic human dignity, regardless of what they're wearing. Am. Robert Hale looked physically ill. Sir, what can we do to make this right? Am. You can listen, Marcus said, because I'm giving this hotel 5 minutes to choose between 3 paths, and every person in this lobby is going to watch you choose. Am. The tension stretched taut enough to hum. Somewhere near the doors, sirens rose faintly in the distance. An HPD unit still en route, unaware the emergency had been called for, no longer existed in the same shape it had 10 minutes earlier. Am. Option 1, Marcus said. Immediate termination of every employee directly involved, a public accountability statement, and full cooperation with an independent investigation. Am. Estimated cost to the company, $2.1 million in legal exposure and reputational repair. Am. Patricia's tablet trembled slightly in her hands. Option 2, Marcus continued. Am. A full discrimination audit across all Twisevis Windward properties. Mandatory bias training for 14,300 employees. And a new monitoring protocol company-wide. Am. Estimated cost, $15.4 million annually. Gasps rippled through the crowd, quiet but real. Am. Option 3, Marcus said, his voice dropping just low enough that people leaned in to hear it. Am. We let this play out naturally. The video reaches federal regulators on its own. Am. Civil rights attorneys take an interest. This company's insurance carrier who avoids coverage for discriminatory conduct, which means every cent of liability lands on Windward directly. Am. He paused. Estimated cost, the company doesn't survive it. Am. The silence that followed had a physical presence, like something you could lean against. Am. Robert's voice cracked when he finally answered. Option 1. Sir, we choose option 1. Am. Marcus nodded slowly. Ms. Ashford, you're terminated, effective immediately. Am. Please surrender your badge to Mr. Hale. Denise's leg seemed to buckle slightly. Am. She caught herself on the reception counter. Mr. Halloway, you're suspended pending a full review of your conduct and your security license. Am. Ms. Voss, you're demoted to front desk associate, effective today, with mandatory sensitivity training and a performance review every 30 days for the next year. Am. Priscilla opened her mouth to argue, and then closed it again, understanding correctly that she'd gotten off lighter than she deserved. Am. These are individual consequences for today, Marcus said, addressing the crowd now, his voice carrying to every corner of the marble lobby. Am. But the actual failure here is systemic, and systemic failures require systemic answers. Am. He laid it out in 6 pieces, each one landing heavier than the last. A zero-tolerance discrimination policy with immediate termination and no warnings. Am. An anonymous reporting system open to guests and staff alike, reviewed within 72 hours by an independent third party. Am. Mandatory bias training for every employee from housekeeping to the executive floor, refreshed quarterly. Am. A full rewrite of guest service standards guaranteeing identical treatment, regardless of appearance or accent. Am. AI-assisted monitoring of front desk interactions, flagging discriminatory patterns in real time. Am. And a partnership with local civil rights organizations to run unannounced evaluations at every property, 4 times a year. Am. These reforms will cost roughly $480,000 per property to implement, Marcus said, $12.7 million company-wide in year 1. Am. But discrimination lawsuits cost more, federal investigations cost more, and losing the trust of every guest who ever wondered if they'd be welcome here costs more than any number I could rook and put in front of you. Am. By the time the 2 HPD officers finally pushed through the revolving doors, the situation they'd been dispatched for no longer resembled the one described in the call. Am. Marcus met them calmly near the concierge desk. Officers, I'm Marcus Whitfield, owner of this hotel. Am. There was a serious misunderstanding, and it's been resolved internally. Am. No charges need to be filed. The senior officer glanced around the lobby, taking in the tear-streaked face of a woman being escorted toward the elevator, a security chief staring at the floor, and a couple dozen phones still recording. Am. We'll log it as an unfounded complaint, he said. clearly relieved to be leaving a situation that had already resolved itself in ways his badge couldn't touch. Am. As the officers departed, Marcus turned back to the crowd one last time. Am. Excellence has no color, he said. Hospitality has no boundaries. Am. And dignity was never something any of you should have had to earn. Am. 6 months later, the lobby of the Windward Grand looked exactly the way it always had, marble gleaming chandelier scattering its perfect light, the reception desk curving elegantly beneath it. Am. But everything about the way it functioned had changed down to its bones. Am. A young black father approached the front desk with his daughter perched on his hip, both of them travel-worn from a delayed flight. Am. The clerk behind the counter knew, thoroughly trained, hired under a completely rebuilt process, smiled without hesitation, and processed the reservation in under 90 seconds. Am. No extra scrutiny, no suspicious glances dressed up as procedure. Am. Just service, freely given, the way it always should have been. Am. The viral video had crossed 61 million views across every platform by then. Am. It had prompted 2 congressional hearings on discrimination in public accommodations and pushed 3 states to strengthen their civil rights enforcement statutes. Am. A business school in Massachusetts had already built a case study around it. Am. But none of that mattered as much as the small, quiet moments happening inside that lobby every single day. Am. 0 discrimination complaints across all 27 properties for 134 consecutive days. Am. Employee satisfaction scores up 31%, guest loyalty numbers at an all-time high. Am. Priscilla Voss, 6 months into her probation, helped an elderly couple from Guatemala navigate a reservation mix-up in careful, improving Spanish, patient in a way she'd never once been before. Am. People could change, systems could change, but only when consequences were real, and nobody was allowed to look away from them. Am. A young reporter named Taylor Briggs, the same woman who had once whispered, "Oh my God," into a shaky Instagram livestream, now stood in the lobby, with a professional camera crew from a Houston news station, doing a 6-month follow-up piece. Am. "Mr. Whitfield," she said, "critics say your response that day was too harsh." Am. That Ms. Ashford lost her entire career over a single mistake. Am. Ms. Ashford made a dozen choices over 15 minutes, Marcus said quietly. Am. Each one deliberate, each one recorded. The harshness was never in the consequence. Am. It was in the decision that came before it. He looked past the camera, out toward the lobby doors where afternoon light was pouring across the marble floor. Am. We don't build better companies by excusing bad behavior. We build them by expecting decency from every person's, every single day, whether and when important happens. Am. That evening, Marcus stood at the window of his office, 20 floors above the lobby, watching the city lights flicker on across Houston one by one. Am. His empire hadn't just survived the crisis. It had come out of it stronger, more honest, and finally aligned with the values he'd spent 25 years claiming to build it on. Am. Because the real measure of that day was never going to be found in a stock price or a headline. Am. It would be found tomorrow, and the day after that, in every ordinary person who walked through those revolving doors in a hoodie, in worn boots, in whatever they happened to be wearing, and was simply, quietly, welcomed. Am. Have you ever watched someone get judged before they said a single word? Am. Have you ever been that person? Tell me about it in the comments below, because stories like this one only matter if we keep telling them and keep listening when someone finally does. Am. If this story moved you even a little, share it with someone who needs to hear that dignity isn't something you have to prove to earn. Am. Subscribe for more true-to-life stories about the moments that quietly change everything, because the world needs more people willing to choose what's right, especially when it would have been easier to look away. Am. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and educational purposes only. Am. All characters, names, businesses, and events depicted are entirely fictional and do not represent any real person, living or dead, or any actual establishment. Am. Any resemblance to real persons, organizations, or events is purely coincidental. Am. This content is intended to explore themes of human dignity, workplace ethics, and social justice through narrative storytelling. Am. It does not make factual claims about any individual company or institution.